In this video, I'm going to show how to install Sencha Architect 3 in the Windows environment. I have a clean version of Windows 7 here that I've never installed Sencha Architect on before, so I'm going to just use this. And I'm going to start by just opening up Internet Explorer here. And I'm going to go to Sencha's website. And I'm going to go to Products, Sencha Architect. And I'm going to download the installer. Alright, latest version here is 3.2. It might be a later version for you by the time you watch this video. Just take the latest one. And I'm just going to save. Alright, that'll take about a minute to download for me. I'm just going to fast forward to the end of the download. Okay, my download's completed. I'm going to click Open Folder here and just run it from that folder. Okay, I'll accept the license agreement. Just take the default. Just took all the defaults. Okay, so that part was quick. It just installed basically the shell of the application. So I'm going to close this. I can close my browser at this point. And now I have this icon on my desktop. I can open it from programs too, but I'm just going to click on this icon on the desktop. Now, first time you open it, it's going to go through and actually download a whole bunch more stuff. That's where most of the installation actually occurs. I'll accept that license agreement. Okay, so at this point, you have to have a Sencha ID, which you can easily get one. I have a Sencha ID, so I'm just going to type that in, and this will start my basic trial. If you license Valence, you get a key automatically for Sencha Architect. You get a single key, and you can also, obviously purchase more of them. But to start your 30-day trial, you need to have a Sencha ID. So if you don't have one, click here. I'm just going to enter my own. Okay, so I've entered my user ID and password. I don't really like sending anonymous stats in my application, so I'm going to uncheck that, and I'll accept the license agreement. Sign in. All right, so that was accepted, and now I'm going to have to wait for a whole bunch of different components to download and install into Sencha Architect. This will take a while, so I'm just going to fast forward to the point where we're getting close to the end. Okay, it's getting close to finishing here. Last component. I think that took about 6 minutes or so. The first thing you're going to want to do with Sencha Architect is open up some of the Valence example applications. And to do that, you're going to have to map a drive. Before I try to map a drive, I'm going to just log into the Valence portal and show you what I mean by the example applications. I'm logging into my CNX test system. You would obviously put in your IBMI system here. Going to log in as QSec offer. All right, so just logging into the Valence portal, you can see all these example programs. All of these are done with Sencha Architect. And all the source code is located on the IFS for these. So let me just minimize this browser. I'm going to go into my System I Navigator and make sure I have a drive mapped to my CNX test system. Because Sencha Architect needs to have a drive mapped in order to be able to open those. So let's see, file systems. Let me just look on the root or file shares. No, I don't have a drive mapped specifically for my Valence Sencha Architect app, so I'm going to do that now. If I open up root, I want to map the drive to Valence-41. This is how I normally do it. We'll just map it right to the root path of that Valence 4.1 installation. And right-click it and do sharing, create share. I normally take out the dash and the dot from Valence 4.1 in the share name. That increases the odds of compatibility with any of the apps that I'm using. This is also very important. You have to give it read-write access. You need to be able to open the apps and you need to be able to save them back. Just leaving this at read access is one of the common problems that we have when people call in for support about using Architect with Valence. So I give that read-write access. I'll say OK. All right, so now I get the little arm with the hand there underneath the folder. That means there's a share. And I'll just double check it by clicking on File Shares down here, and there it is. And it has read-write access. So the name of my share is just Valence 4.1. So I'm going to close System I Navigator. So now I'll go into Windows Explorer, and I'll map a drive. I'll just right-click on Computer and click Map Network Drive. This is Windows 7. If you're on a different version of Windows, the drive mapping could be a little bit different. Oh, I'll leave the drive name as X. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to just do my system name. This could be an IP address for you if you have a domain name like CNX does here. That's fine. So that's the name of my system, and then / my share name is Valence 4.1. All right, I don't really want to reconnect it, log in. I'll just connect it manually when I need it. And I'm going to say connect using different credentials. Otherwise, it's going to pass my Windows credentials, which are different than my IBM credentials. So when I finish that, it's going to ask me for my username and password. So I'll put those in. That's my IBM username and password. And I'm going to say remember those, so I don't have to type them in all the time. Okay, now I have a drive mapped to Valence 4.1, which these are all the subfolders. I recognize them right away that are in that Valence 4.1 folder. So I'm going to close that. Now back to my Architect. Now that I have a drive mapped, I can open up any of those example apps. So I'm going to click Open. Let's make this a little bit bigger. All right, so there's my Valence 4.1 share. I'm going to go into Desktop, and I'm going to go into Examples, Architect. Now these are all my examples. So if I go back to the browser, let's do the load all grid. Okay, if I click on that, that's what this app looks like. All right. So there's my load all grid example app. And then this is what's called an XDS file. I don't really like it in Windows where it doesn't show you the extensions. So I'm gonna turn those on. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I'm back now. I just went into the Windows Explorer and I got rid of that option. It says hide extensions for known file types, and when I come back in here now I can see the .xds. I always like to see that. So that's the main file that you want to click on. All these other subfolders are kind of part of that, part of the project, but this is the one you open up in Architect. Now, the examples were created in Sencha Architect 3.1, and you might be able to see right there, the version of Sencha Architect I loaded was 3.2. So you might get this, you may not. If it says that the application was generated with an older version of Architect and needs to be upgraded, you can just say yes to upgrade it. That's fine. So I'll do that now. Okay, so now I'm inside the application. And, you know, this right here, this is in the browser. So this is what the app looks like when it's running. If I go back in Architect, now I see, because I'm on a low resolution screen here for the purposes of taking this video, normally when we're in development, we have a higher resolution screen on a big monitor, and you can see the development canvas here in the center much better. And then you have all these controls, the toolbox and the project inspector and the config area all around the outside. So maybe I'll just make this a little bit smaller over here. Okay, so even though I can see the app layout generally in this center area, that does not mean that my Sencha Architect is fully working. Like the theme compiler is down here. So if I click this refresh button, it'll start the theme compilation, and when I get this like uncompiled changes warning down here, that's telling me that there's some dependencies that Architect is not able to use in the background. And I'm going to go up here to Edit Preferences, and then there's the section called Dependencies. So if I get an error here, yeah, okay, there was an issue running command, see output log for details. So I'm going to leave this here for a second and go back to the browser. I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to search for the Sencha Architect installation guide. All right. Just going to go to the Sencha Architect 3 documentation. Installation and setup is over here. So I generally have Architect installed, okay? But there's a list of required dependencies here. One of them is a Java runtime environment. Many Windows systems will already have this, okay? But I was using a brand new Windows system which has no other applications on it. I just created a new Windows virtual machine to do this video. So I'm going to need to install a Java runtime environment, and I'm probably also going to need to run Ruby, but I'm going to start with the Java runtime environment. So if I click on this link, it'll bring me to Sun's website, or Oracle's website, and that link, it's already been in January. I think a new one was, so it says please visit our Java SE download page here, which I'll click on that. Okay, so the latest version is 8U31. All right. So there's different kinds of Java. There's JDK, server JRE, and regular JRE. All you need is JRE. So I'm just going to download that one. And let's see, I'm going to go with this executable here. This looks like the x86 offline version. That looks like the full version there, so I'll download this one. Okay, let's try that one. Okay, it looks like we're in business there. I'm just going to take all the defaults and run it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the dependencies here and try it again. Okay, I think I need to reboot so that it can update my path variable. I'll fast forward to when it comes back up. Okay, I've restarted my computer and I've launched Sencha Architect again. I'm going to have to remap that drive because I told it that I didn't want it to remap automatically. So I'll map network drive. It should have remembered my last path, yeah. And let's see, we'll finish that. Okay, it got me in there right away. All right, so now my drive is remapped. And we'll try and open up that load all grid example again. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to go into edit preferences one more time. Okay, now this is good because now when I click on dependencies, I'm not getting an error message that it can't run Sencha command, which it needs Java to do that. So now if I scroll down a little bit here, it is saying that Java is installed. So now I can turn my attention to another major dependency is Ruby. And that is not installed. So there's a link right in here. If you don't have this link in your error message, you can just type it in your browser. You can go to rubyinstaller.org. So I'm going to click on it right from here. And I can just say download. And I'll take the latest one. Save. Okay, there's the Ruby installer, so I'll launch it. I'll run English, accept the license. Okay, this is also very important. I want to select, there's 3 selection boxes here. Basically, you just want to select the second and the third one. We definitely have to add Ruby executables to our path variable, or Sencha Architect won't be able to run Ruby. And then we want to associate these extensions with Ruby. So we choose those second and third one and click install. That was really fast. Now we'll go back to Architect. It says not installed. Okay, so I'm going to reboot again. I'll go ahead and reboot and fast forward through all of that and come back into Sencha Architect again. Okay, so I've restarted everything again. And now when I go into Edit Preferences and Dependencies, I can see that Ruby is now showing as installed, and the Java Developer Kit is also showing as installed. Apache and is not required. I've never had an occasion to use this. It's only for building applications for Android, and I've never had a need to do that. So as long as Ruby and Java is installed, you should be good. Also, another great thing to test over here down in the lower right is the compiling of the theme. So if I click this refresh button, that should go through a compiling process that you can watch. And if that looks like it completes normally, then you know your Sencha Architect is good to go and everything's working perfectly. Okay. And there we are. So now I'll just do one more thing. I'll just test to see if I can make a small change to my application, and that will absolutely validate that the architect is working perfectly. So I'll log back into the portal. The application I've opened up in Sencha Architect is the source for load all grid. So when I launch that, I get a title of customers, and that's an easy thing to change. So let's just, in Architect, we'll change the title of the app. So if I click on the title here, I'll just, instead of saying customers, I'll put my customers. Okay. So when I save, all right, we'll wait for that to save. All right, saved successfully. But I'm going to go here and reload the application. I'll just do refresh. And now it says my customers. The theme looks good. If there was something wrong with my Sencha Architect installation, one of the biggest symptoms is that the theme gets messed up. So the theme still looks really good. I've made a change and I've saved it. So this installation of Sencha Architect is good to go.